Hi there, this is Jimmy Roberts. When it comes to the game of golf, there is no place on earth like the metropolitan area. It's always been a special place for the game of golf and also for golf writing. Some of the most esteemed and accomplished journalists covering the game work here. Now, you'll get a chance to hear them right here on the Metropolitan Golf Writers Association podcast. Enjoy.
Mark Cannizzaro of the New York Post and also currently serving as the Vice President of the Metropolitan Golf Writers Association. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate you having me.
Fresh off the Open Championship with another win for Scottie Scheffler. It's two majors this year. I'm just kind of curious in terms of, we've seen some stretches by people post Tiger Woods, and I'm not going to be one of those people that compares or even wants to get into that conversation. But when you look at his performance at Royal Portrush, how would you assess this dominant stretch that he's in, and what stood out for you in his performance this past major?
Anthony, I don't think it's unfair to bring Tiger into the conversation here a little bit. Regarding this dominant stretch. Obviously, as Scotty even said when Tiger's name was brought up in the post game press conference, if you will, at the end of the tournament, was listen, I have four majors, he has 15. I'm a quarter of the way there.
Right.
But that said, when you look at what he's done in the last 2 years, it is reminiscent of what Tiger was doing in the height of his powers.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I would say that kind of jumped out at me when I was out there at Portrush was listening to the opposing players speak about what was going on with Scotty, because it brought me back to the things that I heard from the Davis Loves and Jim Furyk's of the world and Ernie Els and whatnot, the guys that were chasing Tiger back in his height. You hear the same things, they're literally like, we got to go to work. I mean, we have to catch up to what he's doing.
Yeah.
How
Ting said playing for second, right? He was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was a little bit, that was an odd thing for him to say, but it was true,
Yeah, no, for sure.
But, I heard, a lot of guys on Saturday night after the third round was over, Scotty had the 4-shot lead, which certainly isn't insurmountable.
Mm-hmm.
But, this is a guy that's closed out his previous 9 or 10 54-hole leads and does not go backward. And so there was definitely a feeling, like you mentioned, the Hao Tung, comment. But even the guys that didn't say that, they were saying that if you read between the lines. He had put that golf tournament to sleep. And that's what Tiger used to do.
Yep.
Listen, Scotty has a long way to go to sustain and to do those kinds of things, but he's only 29 years old. Again, you don't know what injury factors, any of those kinds of things. I always remember Jack Nicklaus was so prescient when people were talking about Tiger breaking his record.
Yeah, I remember.
Jack would say, listen, he hasn't had a family yet. He hasn't gone through those kind of different life dynamics, no kids,
Sure.
No wife yet and all that kind of thing. Well, look what happened to Tiger when he did have a family, right? And obviously injuries as well with him was a massive factor. So
Sure.
Nobody can read the crystal ball and say what's going to be going on with Scotty in 3, 4, 5 years. But the way he's going right now, I don't think it's unfair to bring Tiger into the conversation because of the fact that he's doing Tiger-like things right now.
Sure.
He just is so steady. He's so unaffected. Again, you probably, I'm sure everybody remembers his Tuesday press conference with us, which left a lot of people slack-jawed in that interview room. I was one of them.
Yeah.
But I was kind of listening to him and going, I kind of loved what I was hearing because Scotty's almost very robotic on the golf course and off of it.
Yeah.
And he really kind of opened a vein a little bit that day and let us inside a little bit, which, a lot of the top star athletes don't do.
Yes.
And the interesting thing I thought about that Scotty sermon, if you will, and he's a very religious man. Faith and family are his, most important things. I felt like there was a lot of religious undertone there to what he was saying,
mm-hmm.
but he doesn't beat you over the head with the religion. A lot of people are kind of put off by that,
mm-hmm.
Whether you're religious or not. And that's the way Scotty is. He will never stand in front of a microphone and say, God allowed me to do this or, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong when athletes do that, but
mm-hmm.
it can turn some people off. And Scotty doesn't do that. So I really feel like the way he was talking that Tuesday was there was a lot of undertone there about the fact that his faith in his family, the things that are important to him, and winning a golf tournament is not going to define him.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, I think there's, and it doesn't have to be necessarily religious undertone. I think it's just a healthy perspective. I remember watching, I don't know if you ever watched The Wire, that TV show on HBO, and there's a scene in there about between an up and coming young detective and an old veteran detective, Lester Freeman, and he's talking to this young guy, and he's saying, the job will not save you, and what he's saying is that it's not going to make you whole. And I think that's all Scottie was saying. He was just saying that, yes, of course I want to accomplish these things. Of course I want to win things. But at the end of the day, I'm not defined by my score, by my record, because what makes me whole as a person is my faith in his case, is his
mhm.
family and Meredith, and now, in his young son. So, I just think you're right. For him, it is a religious thing, but I think it's just a healthy thing for anybody who,
Totally.
in their
Yeah.
profession, that it's not going to make you whole. Some of those things.
Yeah, no question about it. But yeah, it's funny because a lot of people were trying to twist that
Yeah, exactly.
into a thing that he doesn't care. But
Right.
if you look at his reaction on 18 after it was all over, he's stone faced for 4 straight days,
Hmm.
and he let out, a primal scream on that. That's the release just
Exactly.
tells you how difficult it is to do, and the tension that's built up when you're trying to, basically hold a lead,
Hmm.
for an entire major championship essentially.
Yeah.
And I did a huge piece on Scottie's caddy, Ted Scott, for the Sunday paper prior to the Open Championship, and that story was much more about just kind of the twists of fate about how he became a caddy and whatnot, and
Right.
just these kismet moments in his life.
Hmm.
But we talked about Scottie a bit, and Ted just told me some anecdotes about Scottie's competitiveness, and
Right.
you don't see that when you see Scottie at a press conference. He's got a goofy laugh and and all that kind of stuff. You don't really see the natural born killer he is inside
Yeah.
as a competitor.
Hmm.
And that was some of Teddy was telling me some stuff. Just he literally said to me, he goes, I don't care what the sport is. I don't care who he's playing. He could be playing a 9-year-old girl, and he will throw it in her face,
Yep.
and gloat if he's winning,
Yep.
because that's the competitive. That's what drives him. And
Yeah.
one of the things I walked out of that press conference with a little bit was, will he stay because of how important Meredith and Bennett and his family are to him? Will he stay that driven and interested in chasing the carrot?
Hmm. Hmm.
Tiger was singular focused. I mean, he
Yeah.
wanted to get that 18 major mark, with Jack and obliterate it. That stuff obviously is not important to Scottie. So I kind of thought to myself, will he stay interested long enough, as long as he's healthy, to touch some of these Tiger records?
Hmm.
But then my second thought was, his thirst for the competition, I think, is what will keep him interested.
Sure.
Because obviously that he loves that, in every aspect. Like, referring back to my conversation with Ted,
Yep.
and so I think it's good news for us as golf fans to know that or assume or think that he's not going to walk away after a couple, 3, 4, 5 more years because he's satisfied financially and he wants to go to Bennett's little league games or whatever.
Yep.
I think that thirst for the competition will always keep him
Right.
him in the game, and I think that's good for the game, obviously.
As someone who's covered the game as closely as you have, and let's ignore the family part, I would just want to know from your perspective, how has he's only 29 years old, but you've been covering the tour for a long time, and you've seen Scotty come up. How has he evolved as a player? We know as a person he has a family now. He's married and has a kid, and I'm just talking about from a golf aspect.
Sure.
How has he evolved, and what's been your perspective on that?
Well, Anthony, if we're talking straight up X's and O's golf, what he
Yeah,
has done is he's made himself a really good putter.
yeah,
And if you recall the narrative around Scotty not long ago, less than a year and a half or so ago,
yeah.
was, my God, if he could just putt a little bit, he'd win everything.
Right.
And now he's kind of winning everything. I mean, if you look what he did, he was dropping bombs all over the place at Port Rush.
Yeah.
And he's working with Phil Kenyon, who's one of the most renowned putting
Thank you.
instructors in
Yeah.
the world. And it's funny, he was. I know Matthew Fitzpatrick, the British player.
Hmm.
Um, he was kind of lamenting tongue in cheek a little bit, like, I really wish that, because he's worked with Kenyon over the years as well. I really wish that, that Kenyon had not given up his secrets to Scotty now, because now we're all doomed
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Now these things, listen, golf is fickle.
Yep.
Things change, right?
Yes, of course.
So, but right now what he's done is, he's married his unbelievably good driving ability with his great ball striking to now he's making putts.
Right.
And that's why he won the Open Championship, because he was the best player in the place, but
Yeah.
he was the best putter for the week essentially. His
Yeah.
strokes gained putting was insane. I know.
Yes.
So that is actually, I mean, that's where he's really, he's made the strides on the golf course without question. I think, the mentality wise, as we referred to, I mean, he has the strongest mind in golf, which, oh, by the way, to me was always Tiger's
Big
best weapon was his mind.
100%. Definitely. What were you a little disappointed in the weather on the Open? I mean, you've been there for many Open championships across the pond. It was a little benign. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that would have made a difference. Scotty is Scotty, and it would have been a little more interesting, but it was definitely not up to we call across the pond standards.
No, it wasn't. And, I'm a little biased because I'm out there walking the golf course following
Well,
these
that's true.
guys. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I do remember in 2019 being way out on the golf course following Shane Lowry when he was winning and getting absolutely soaked to the bone, with one of those, storms that just kind
Yeah.
of came over the North Atlantic.
Yeah.
Uh, and as somebody who also likes to play a little bit, I actually was I mean, I felt like I was stealing that entire trip because I had actually gone over 5 days early with a couple colleagues and played
Sure.
on the way into the Open. And I mean, it was almost too hot. It was literally
Right.
about 85 degrees out the week before.
Right.
The week of the Open really actually was perfect because the sun had kind of gone in. It was still, you had that kind of cloudy, overcast for the most part. There was some sun a
Sure.
little bit, but there were just a couple of little rain bursts during that tournament, which, quite frankly, which Scotty got the worst of a couple times.
Yeah,
Uh,
he was on the technically it wasn't much, but he was technically on the
yeah,
wrong side of the
yeah,
draw, but it
yeah.
wasn't.
The one thing I would say too, which it's just the rub of the green, so to speak, and the way it works is I've seen Open championships where it's been so bad for one wave of the tee times that
Yeah,
it becomes unfair.
yeah,
It's not unfair because that's just the way it is, but I've seen players blown off the golf course and having two bad draws on the Thursday and Friday, which literally renders them, non-competitive in terms of winning the golf tournament. So I don't like to see that happen.
no, no, for
But
sure.
I do like to see. Listen, I like to see wind, like everybody. You want to see the guys struggle a little bit and try to work the wind a little bit,
Hmm.
and that more so than the rain for the players is a deterrent.
Yep.
So it would have been cooler to see a little bit more wind. That's the one thing I would have liked to have seen.
Yeah, I don't necessarily need to see them struggle per se. I'd like to see them challenged and navigating, like you said,
Yeah,
and
creativity.
creativity. And I think wind, I don't think rain, like let's just assume it's just a regular steady rain. I
Yeah,
don't think rain is so much effective to them as much as it is the wind. The wind really bothers them more than the rain, I think, because they're so precise and any slight change or gust or letdown could, really makes a dramatic effect because these are
yeah,
guys who are can call their shots within a couple of yards under normal circumstances.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, listen. It's in the U.S. It's target practice. A lot of
Exactly.
times these
Exactly.
tournaments.
I
So
want to talk briefly about and just your thoughts on Chris Gotterup. I mean, he had a really good couple of weeks. He's not Scottie Scheffler, but boy, he's really thrown himself into the mix. I've been kind of on record with a couple of my buddies about him this year going into the Scottish Open, and so he's really made a real strong push for himself, and I'm really happy for the way he's playing.
it's amazing, his run. I actually was out yesterday with Ben Griffin, who's got 2 wins on tour this year.
Sure.
I had a little invite to go play with him and his financial backer out at Liberty National yesterday, and we were talking about Chris a little bit. And
Yeah.
Ben was shaking his head because he's like, he was on a path to lose his tour card before the Scottish Open. You
Sure.
know, I think he missed 5 out of his first 6 cuts or something in the year, 4 out of 5, whatever it is.
Right.
And you know, it's so cool to see a guy catch fire like that and change his life.
Yep.
And you know, he Chris, I've done a bunch of stories on him over the years since he came out. Basically, first I did some stories on him before the U.S. Open at Brookline because he was in that field, and he's a very unaffected guy. You know, that's the one thing that I get. He's not a lot of highs and lows, which you know we just talked about Scottie. Nobody's better
Yeah.
than that, Scottie.
Yep.
And so I think his demeanor is really, really good golf for what he's doing here. And he's also massively long off the tee. I mean, he's one of the longest, you know, hitters in the sport right now.
Hmm.
That also obviously is a big deal.
Sure.
Uh, but the cool thing was how he adapted his game. He wasn't super familiar with links golf at all.
Yeah.
And I actually walked his practice round with him for the early part of his practice round on the Tuesday of Open Week, and I mean, he was ripping stingers like he's been doing this since he was a kid. You know, I mean, those little low 2-iron stingers were, you know, the first hole, which is everybody was doing. Um, and listen, confidence is such a massive factor in this sport, and that's why you kind of see when guys get hot, they stay hot for a little while.
Right. Right.
And what I was really fascinated to see, quite frankly, was how he was going to react this week at the 3M, which is obviously not a high rung PGA Tour event with a lot of stars in it.
Right.
He's coming off that win. You know, I don't know. I know he shot way under par yesterday, from what I
Yeah.
understand.
Yep.
Golf course with it, like 7 or 8 under or something like that.
Yes.
And I was fascinated to see how he was going to react to that after those 2 crazy, you know, weeks. But
Mhm.
and not, you know, and you know, maybe come down from that a little bit.
Yep.
But this is a big stretch for him, as you know, Anthony, because he is literally he's injected himself into the Ryder Cup conversation right
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
you know, I mean, Keegan Bradley has a responsibility to bring the hottest players with him to Bethpage.
Yep.
And if Chris keeps this up and he's in the FedEx Cup, you know, his ranking is down, I believe, down to 27th in the world. So he's in great shape in the FedEx Cup.
Yep.
In fantastic shape to get to East Lake. And if he keeps this thing rolling, I don't know how Keegan Bradley can keep him off the team.
Yeah. I don't think so either. I think, you know, to your point and wondering about how he would react at the 3M, I think he's got the bit in his mouth at this point,
Yeah,
and he knows.
absolutely.
And so now he's charging the line. So he's, you know, he sees it. He's coming around the quarter, you know, that last quarter turn, and he knows
Yeah.
that this is a big. Now, I just hope, my only question and my only concern, like you said, form is fickle, confidence is hard to get and maintain, and easily to be knocked down. I hope he hasn't peaked a little too soon, because we're still talking about the, you know, I think he's right in the window, but I don't
Oh,
want it to be too soon.
I think he's in the wheelhouse right now. I don't
Yeah.
think this is too soon at all. You know, one of the things that he was very repetitive with when I spoke to him during the week last week was just the comfort level. He's now kind of getting comfortable. You know, even though he's been on the tour a little bit, he's comfortable and he sees what he's capable of, and it's, you know, now he has tangible evidence of it.
Yeah.
So I think that is a huge deal. Obviously, you know, he's secured his card now. You know,
Hmm.
cemented his card obviously with the 2 wins. Um, and obviously the Scottish being a really, you know, I mean, to stare down Rory in the final round in Scotland.
Huge.
I mean, that to me has an asterisk on it, on that win.
100%.
So he, you know, the confidence level and the comfort level about kind of like, you know, what he's doing and what works and what doesn't work are some of the things he spoke to me about last week. And obviously, you know, as you said, I like the way you phrase that. The bit is in the mouth. He sees the opportunity,
Yeah.
and you know, he's in great form. You know, and I don't know what that course is like in Minnesota. Obviously, it's probably not one of the most difficult ones. You know,
Oh,
so
no, I mean, someone, I forget, you know, was 11 under, shot 60. So,
yeah. So
you know, it's a shootout for sure.
yeah, I'm just calling. I'm calling the scores up right now. I'm kind of curious. I didn't even get a chance to look at it. In fact, I literally didn't even know he shot that well until I was
Yeah.
talking to Ben about it when we were over at Liberty National. He was the one that mentioned that he'd gone low. So
Yeah,
yeah, so he's T3, yeah, which is fantastic. But
exactly.
yeah, Svensson, wow, 11 under.
11 under, you know,
But you know, but you know, he's coming off a course which is, even though the conditions weren't so adverse at Port Rush. That's
Right.
still a pretty difficult golf course, and links golf is difficult to navigate. So
Yeah.
to some degree, I'm sure he got there and he was looking around and he's like, I can bomb it all over the place and
Yeah.
really go low here, and so hopefully he keeps it going. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Well, we're talking about the Ryder Cup. We're dancing around the Ryder Cup. We might as well just get right to it. And listen, you've covered New York sports specifically for a long, long time for the New York Post. We're now coming to um, Bethpage, Bethpage Black.
Hmm.
Uh, just you know, your I have concerns, but I'm curious. What is your thoughts? Obviously, it's a very compelling venue. Tell everybody why and what you think. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I concern is a little bit of a different. I mean, that's going. You shouldn't be
I'm
concerned.
being too dramatic here. I was going.
I think you're being too dramatic, and I've heard people talk about that a bit. And listen, it's going to be a spirited, fantastic environment. I quite frankly think it's going to be an environment that the Europeans are going to embrace because that gets you up too when
Yeah,
you can shut up the home crowd. I mean, in every sport you talk to every athlete over the years. I've talked to football players and they love going into other people's stadiums and shutting
yeah,
these people up. And so I
100%.
think that energy alone, I think is going to be great for both teams. Obviously, listen, are there going to be some rude comments? Of course there'll be, because
Oh yeah, I mean,
that many people out there, you can't help but that be the case. But, you know, listen, I mean, there's going to be plenty of security. If there's, any kind of ruckus issues, it's going to be taken care of. I mean, they're going to be ready for that,
Yeah. Oh no, they've
Yeah.
already talked about. I've heard through the grapevine. They're obviously they're going to have a police presence, but they're actually going to have plainclothes
Oh,
people as
yeah.
well
Yeah.
that'll be monitoring the situation. But you're
Yeah. I
right.
mean,
And I think
this is
when I say
sports.
concerns, I mean I don't mean just from a New York standpoint. Europeans can be just as rowdy as anybody else.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know,
I mean,
so,
I've heard, listen, I've covered every Ryder Cup since 1997
yeah,
in
yeah,
Dollarama. And I hear, the U.S. players are getting rude comments too, and over
yeah,
there without
yeah.
question.
Of course.
So, listen, it's at the end of the day, it's all in fun. It's sports. These guys are inside the ropes with massive security everywhere.
Yeah,
There's nothing, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's
yeah,
not,
yeah, yeah,
it's overblown.
yeah, yeah.
Is it going to be spirited? It's going to be rocking,
Hundred
absolutely, and
percent.
that's the way it should be. That's what the Ryder Cup is.
How do you
That's what separates it from all the other golf events, right?
You've covered every Ryder Cup venue, like you said. I'm just curious, what do you expect from Bethpage Black? How do you rate it as a venue for the Ryder Cup? Where does it fit in?
Oh, I think it's going to be as good as any. I really do. I mean, I think. Listen, you know, you and I have talked. You've played the golf course. I played it a bunch of times.
Yep.
And I've also been lucky enough to play a lot of golf courses. Just very fortunate because of what
Sure.
I do. And I've gotten picked in the lottery to play Augusta before. I played in Pebble Beach on my honeymoon.
Yep.
Played all over Scotland and Ireland and England, and played the links golf. And I've even gotten out of Cypress Point one time, right, which is
Right.
just which is the
Amazing.
ultimate. And Pine Valley. So I've done all of those things I've done. I've been lucky enough to do.
Yep.
And all of that said, I always say that to me, Bethpage Black is easily in my top 10, and that's being conservative. It might be in my top five
Hmm. Wow.
because I literally have you played it a lot of times? You're a
Yes.
Long Island guy.
Yes. Yes. I played it when it was, you know, before the Open, when it was
Yeah,
scruffy, when you had to get a hammer and nail just to get your tee
yeah,
in the
yeah.
tee box. Uh,
So everybody has their own, his or her own way of rating a golf course. To me, my rating of a golf course is when I can remember the holes.
mhm.
And I can close my eyes and take myself through all 18 holes
Yeah.
at that page. And that's not because I played it 100 times.
No.
I've
Yeah.
played it probably, I'm just guessing, maybe 10 to 15 times, and maybe max, right? But I can't. There's a lot. There's not many golf courses I can close my eyes and think of every single hole.
Sure.
And I can do that with Bethpage. It's that way. And listen, you got some stout golf holes there. There'll be some risk reward stuff there.
Yep.
It has everything. And I'm biased. I'm a Tillinghast guy. Tillinghast did my golf course, Suburban Golf Club in Union, New Jersey. So, I love his style.
Hmm.
and I think it's going to be as good as any. I really do. I think it's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I think it's got the potential to be an all-time, amazing venue and Ryder Cup. So
Yeah.
I'm super looking forward to it a lot. Just your thoughts on, sort of Harris English has now snuck into the
He's
frame,
six.
and so
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious. That could him and Justin Thomas, depending on how the playoffs go, could flip and flop depending on how it goes. But in terms of, let's leave it as of right now. I have right now Justin Thomas as a pick, Ben Griffin as a pick. I'm going with Maverick McNeely as a pick, Cantlay and Sam Burns as a pick. I don't know. Oh, and I'm sorry. And then, of course, uh,
Keegan.
Keegan.
You taking Keegan?
I'm taking
Yeah.
Keegan. So yeah, I just kind of curious where
No Brian Harmon. That's interesting because I think
Well,
Brian Harmon's a bulldog. I think he could be a pretty, you
I
know,
think I
good fit.
do. I looked up. He missed a cut. He was plus 14 the last time they were at Bethpage for the PGA. Although we've been plagued by the weather there. Every championship has seemed to have been underwater
Yeah,
at Bethpage. So I'm not trying to write him off that easy, but it's a big golf course.
it
I'm,
is. That's a
I'm
fair point. Yeah,
I'm looking for big golfers and I'm looking for good putters.
but
Not that,
Cantlay has not been in any kind of form in a while now. So
no, I know.
that's going to be an interesting swing pick, I think, for Keegan.
Yep, yep.
I'll be, as we refer to Keegan, I'll be surprised if Keegan is not playing. I think he should play. I think he is more of an asset to the U.S. inside the ropes than he is outside the ropes, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
And you know, you know, I get it. He's tailed off a little bit recently. Let's, be interesting to see how he plays in the next few weeks. But listen. People make such a big deal about the captaincy thing and all that stuff. Jim Furyk has been a captain, and he was a good captain, and he's one of his assistant captains.
Yeah.
He can easily take over the responsibilities. He's done everything already before, so
Yeah.
there's no reason why the Keegan can't still have the captain title and just delegate more to Jim. And
100%.
because I think inside the ropes, his passion is just it's not to, you combine his passion and his form, and I think that's a huge asset
Yeah.
to the U.S. And I think it was something they missed in Italy 2 years ago. I thought it was a massive whiff on the part of Zach Johnson by not taking him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I expect Keegan to be playing. I'd be
I
really
do too.
surprised.
And I think players want him to play.
Yeah,
I think they respect what he's done. I think it's, I really do. And so, you know what? I'm going to take out Cantlay and I'm going to put in Chris Gotterup. That's my
that would be fun. Yeah,
that would be
listen, I'm
fun.
hoping.
Oh,
Chris is 22nd right now, so if he could just keep his form going a little bit. I mean, hey, listen, if he wins this week, that would be magical. I mean, he'd be in pretty
oh,
much.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if he can just keep this thing going, I'd love to see him climb that a little bit and make it more of a decision.
Yes.
I'm looking at the numbers here. I mean, you got some inexperience on there. JJ Spawn's obviously going to be on that team.
Yep, he's the lock at 3.
He's a lock. And Henley is not a guy with a lot of experience there.
No, I mean the only
Maverick
person.
McNeely, no. So yeah, I mean, listen, and obviously Ben doesn't have experience either. I'm hoping and thinking he should be in.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I have a Ben as a pick, and Cameron Young's a good putter, but his form has been very
yeah,
patchy.
it's tough.
So that's
He'd have to have a pretty good run, I think.
when you look
You
at
know,
when you go from 7 to 20, there's not in terms of that's why I mean I have like I said Thomas Griffin. I did take a flyer on McNeely, but then
he's a good putter, so that's actually not a bad
right
pick.
exactly, and
But
so
no experience there, obviously, no Ryder Cup experience. Wyndham Clark now he played pretty well at the British the
he
other day.
did
So,
after his mea culpa, yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that I get the feeling that there's a little, with what he did at Oakmont, smashing the locker up and all that stuff, and even at the PGA with those temper tantrums, that that might be a little bit of a not a fit that Keegan wants. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering. I think that, you know, I mean, his form has been decent. He jumped 6 spots just after the British.
Yeah.
but he's still at 16 right now, so I think he would have to play really, really well in the next couple of few weeks.
Yeah, he's got a bad look going right now. He's just got,
Yeah,
so I do like Chris Gotterup, but there's not a lot of, strong putters in that 7 to 20. When you go through, if you look at strokes gained putting.
yeah.
So, but going back to Keegan, I think he's the guy. I'd love to see him play. I think he can do it. I mean, so he's got, like you said, he's got plenty of help. All he has to do is play, go in, make a speech, and that's it. Like it's not like he's lifting a lot of heavy weight going on and doing a lot of heavy lifting going on. Most of the decisions and all this stuff is going to be done by the time they get there.
It's all analytic driven anyway. It's
Right,
it's
right,
like pressing buttons basically at this point.
exactly. But I do think it's going to be. It has the potential between Keegan and being in the Northeast and Bethpage Black. I think it has
Yeah,
all the makings for an all-time great Ryder Cup, and I can't wait to look forward to it.
yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. I want to wrap up here, but I want to talk about, obviously, I mentioned earlier in the program, you are the vice president of the Metropolitan Golf Writers Association, one that I've been proud to be a part of, not as long as you, but I've just loved every bit of it, the fellowship, the people I've been able to meet, people like yourself who I normally wouldn't get a chance to meet. It's just a great organization. They do a great job honoring, having different honorees at the end of the year with their dinner. Just wanted you to just give me a little context for the Metropolitan Golf Writers Association.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're a long standing program institution. If you go to one of our dinners, and certainly I would hope that some of our listeners would be interested in going because what we do is, and you've seen it obviously behind the dais. There's a large, I guess I would call it a poster, but it's more than a poster. I mean, it's a gigantic banner
Hmm.
with that lists all the names of our Gold Tee winners over the years. And I mean,
Sure.
it's basically a who's who in golf.
Yeah.
Your Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, and go on down the line.
Right.
And so that I find when I go to that dinner and I'm speaking to people who have never been to it before, they're a little bit slack jawed at the names up on that banner. Like,
Yep.
oh my God, like this is legit stuff here. This is just
Yeah.
not some fly by night. Knights of Columbus dinner. No offense to Knights of Columbus here, but
No, but
uh,
I hear you.
so
And
that's the one thing that I think stands out to people. And this year we've got Billy Payne, who was the former chairman at Augusta National and the Masters. He's our Gold Tee winner this year.
yeah.
He did massive things at Augusta. Obviously, everybody knows what people that know about him knows that he brought the Olympics to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Um, so he's an extremely accomplished man who was overseeing bringing women into Augusta National,
Yeah.
and kind of, you know, I don't want to say leveling those grounds, if you will, because they'll never really be level.
No, but I
Um,
mean that's a big transition.
it's a big transition, and he was a big proponent of that, and very much behind the scenes involved in that. So Billy is, that's going to be a pretty cool honoree. He'll be coming up to the dinner,
Yeah.
and I know I spoke to him. I did a video with him. He is beyond thrilled. I mean, he really sees that, this as an honor, which is pretty cool because it's a guy that's been honored. Not
Right.
the first time he's been honored, right?
No,
And
I mean I think like to your point, it speaks to the significance of the Met Golf Writers Association.
yes, yeah, it does, and it's cool that he recognizes that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Our Link Worden Award winner, which I have a soft spot in my heart for, which is a writing award for accomplishments in writing, which I was honored and myself to win a few years ago,
Yeah.
is Bill Pennington from the it was in the New York Times for ages. Bill and I actually go back to our early journalism days. My first full time job was a sports editor of a small paper in Greenwich, Connecticut called the Greenwich Time,
Hmm.
and the affiliated newspaper to the Greenwich Time in Connecticut was the Stamford Advocate, and Bill worked up at the Stamford Advocate. So we kind of, we've known each other going back into the '80s now,
Wow.
40 plus years. Not to date myself, and I guess he's retired, so he's already dated himself. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still going strong and still feel like I'm 20 something years old. So
Attaboy.
but Bill is super accomplished. I mean, he was a Yankee beat writer forever. In Stanford. his time at the New York Times, he was a tremendous golf writer for the Times, and so we got to work together a lot during that period of time. So he's a very worthy winner,
Yeah.
and I like the fact, I'm biased, because this is we are the Metropolitan Golf Writers Association,
Yes.
and sometimes in our world that we live in now, we lose sight of that a little bit because everything's about social media and it's
Yeah.
not as much about the written word as it used to be. And
No.
Bill represents that as I still do. And so I'm very biased. I always feel like this Link Worden Award, should be to a proper writer like Bill. And
Yep.
so he's totally worthy.
I like the way you said that, a proper writer, because you're right. It's become difficult to honor people like this
Yeah, yeah. So it's good.
in
It's
the
cool.
current
It's
space.
good. Last year we honored Steve DeMeglia, who's since passed away, who
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
USA Today, and
Mhm.
Steve was on everybody's doorstep and hotel room, door because at USA Today back in the day, it was all, quite frankly, that's why the players all knew Steve so well
Yeah.
because that was what they read at their
Right.
hotel rooms at the tournaments. They pick up the paper outside the door for free and we used to razz him a lot about that. So it's good. I like that. Hank Ola, obviously our president, is a winner
Hmm.
of it, and I gave his introductory speech, which of course I busted his chops a bit as we
Of
would.
course.
But yeah,
How
so
could
it's
you not?
cool. It's a cool award.
Yeah.
I've literally got mine framed sitting right in my office here. It's a really cool thing, and I'm glad that Bill's perfect for it.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
And we've got our Paul Dillon Award, who's one of our favorite people. Paul, back in the day, is Sean McManus. Obviously, he ran CBS Sports,
Sports. Yep.
and Sean has overseen. Sean was overseeing CBS Sports when Tiger was tearing up Augusta National, and you know dropping that chip in on 16 and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And
He's
I was, CBS every year. Anthony has a little gathering at one of the houses they rent in Augusta, and that I would see Sean every year there, in a chit chat out in the lawn of the house they're at over a couple beverages, and
hmm
so and just very very unassuming dude, not a self promoter whatsoever. I'm sure he was probably even a little not embarrassed or whatever to get this award. I mean,
yeah.
he's honored,
Right.
but he's not an attention seeking type of
Yeah.
individual.
Sure.
So he's very, very, very worthy, obviously. And our family of the year, the Statlers.
Yeah.
That's got to be some fun now because
Yeah.
we know the Walrus is the Walrus, and
Yep.
we grew up watching him,
Yep.
and I don't know Kevin really well, his son, but I have a friend of mine who's very tight with him, who's a PGA Tour caddy out in Colorado, a guy named Ron Levin,
hmm
and he knows Kevin very well, and Kevin's a pretty good personality himself, and
Oh,
was
I'm sure.
obviously a very accomplished golfer. So
Sure.
that'll be that's a good family of the year
Yep.
to have. And our last one is the Mizuho Americas, which has been doing the LPGA event over at Liberty National, where I was yesterday.
Yep.
Michelle Wee very involved with them, and I believe Hank did a really good little podcast video with Michelle
Yep.
at the Mizuho, earlier this summer. So they're doing some really good things for metropolitan area golf,
100%.
bringing the women here. I mean, and that's a top player field event. I mean, everybody was at that. Nelly Corda's there, everybody's there.
Yep.
So that's a cool thing to have in our backyard here.
Yeah, it's a worthwhile company. They are doing a lot of stuff, so I'm happy to see them being recognized for their
Yeah.
efforts.
So buy tickets. Let's go. Bring
Yes,
it in.
exactly.
Right.
Buy tickets.
Buy
But no,
tickets to come. It's a fun event.
it's a great organization. It's a great event. I love. Obviously, we're fortunate to have some outings where we get to go preview some golf courses, like we were at Suburban and some other places. We got Woodway coming up, but just that idea of being able to get together and sort of have it's almost like our version of the locker room. Like that's our time to everybody gets a chance to hang out and we're
Yeah.
talking and we're joking and just talking about the beat or whatever media. it's just a fun organization, and I hope more local writers would join it. People. I know the golf space is challenging, but if you're writing about golf or if you're doing stuff about golf and you live in the area, you should be a part of the organization.
Yeah, and we've had a really good influx of new members.
Yep.
Some of the young guys and young writers, from golf.com, which is based here, and Golf Digest. We're starting to really get some of the younger guys in, and they're kind of, as you said, the outings are a pretty nice carrot,
Yeah.
for people to come in on because, we do play some of the best golf courses around. I mean, I remember playing I'd always wanted to play Arcola, for example.
Oh yeah, that was
We
last.
had the opportunity to do so.
Yep.
And last year that was on our list to play, which was totally awesome to go check that out.
That
So,
was amazing.
those are the kinds of things that, those are the kind of perks, for us, that
Yeah.
we have. And
100%.
I have to, before you close,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I need to know what the painting, what hole is that in the background?
This this is Maidstone. This is
Is it really? I should know that. That's one of my favorite places on the planet.
and actually that was painted by my daughter.
Is that right?
Who's an aspiring artist.
Is she a golfer?
She's not a golfer yet, but I took a picture when I was there and I said, "Can you paint this for me?" Because
Wow.
I said I love this place. This was a magical day, and I want you to paint it for me. It was just a perfect, an unbelievable day.
Yeah, well, that is to me. I mean, that's way up in my favorites. I've got a dear friend who's a member there that's nice enough to invite me there, one or two times this summer, and
Yep,
it is
yep.
that is as pure as it gets out
I
there, and
mean,
it is not even close.
so good.
That's as close to me as where I just came from in Ireland. I mean,
Yeah,
the
right. Yeah.
proper links course. It's hard by the ocean,
Yep.
like even Shinnecock is as great as Shinnecock it is. It's not on the water.
No,
It's
no,
it's a fantastic links golf course, but it's not on the water.
no. It's not like Maidstone where it's firm and fiery, and you got the wind
Yeah,
right on the ocean for sure.
yeah. That's a
Uh,
great spot.
Before we go, I do. You've mentioned Hank Gold, our president, our fearless leader, now taking over and doing a lot of nice things to bring the Met Golf Writers Association up to speed with some different things. You've played a lot of golf with him, but I did hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, did you guys play with Phil Mickelson at one point? And
Yes,
can
yeah.
you share that real briefly before we go?
I'm going to throw Hank a little bit under the bus here, actually. I'm glad you asked that
I'm
because
good. Yeah.
I have had a very, very good relationship with Phil for a number of years,
Yes, you have. Yep.
professionally, and then became a little personally. He was very helpful to me when I had some health problems, and so I had when I got on the other side of my health issues. Uh, I was coming out. I covered football, obviously, as well as golf. So
Sure.
I was going out, and it was 2010, going out to cover a Jets Chargers playoff game when there was such a thing as a San Diego Chargers. Unfortunately, no longer. And Phil knew I was coming out, and he texted me. He said, "Where do you want to play golf?" And I said, "Well, why don't you tell me where I want to play golf? Whatever,
Yeah. Right. Right.
So he said, "Why don't you come out to the Bridges, which is one of his clubs out there in
Yep.
Rancho Santa Fe?"
Yep.
And he said, bring three. You could bring three buddies. I bring two buddies because he said I'm going to be practicing out there with Butch Harmon.
Hmm.
If I'm done in time, I'll join you. We'll just play as a foursome. Otherwise, you guys can just play as a threesome.
Yep.
The place is yours. And so Hank, as you know, Phil is a very hot button guy, right? There's a
Yeah.
love or hate, and
Yeah.
we're certainly at the height of that right now with Live and all that.
Right.
And there was always a vibe around Phil that he was a know-it-all, or he was phony. You hear all the nonsense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Hank kind of fell on that side. I got a little. I would get tweaked by Hank every once in a while,
Right.
and some other colleagues about my relationship with Phil.
Hmm.
And as soon as I told Hank, because he was coming out as well to cover that game, as soon as I told Hank that we were invited to go play with Phil over at the Bridges, he was like, "Oh, that's awesome! Let's go! Oh, that's so nice of Phil!" Blah blah blah. Right. So it was myself and Hank and my good friend Steve Edelson from the Asbury Park Press from down near where I live at the time was covering football. Three of us go out there, hitting balls on the range. We drive up to the first tee to meet Phil. Phil is there with Butch, and Phil says, "What tees do you guys want to play?" And I said, "Phil, whatever tees you play, we're fine with. And the guys are looking at me like, what are you, freaking crazy?
Right. Right.
Back tee box at the Bridges is literally like it's this nipple of a tee box behind the practice green, almost like in the clubhouse of the
Right.
in the
Exactly.
locker room entrance of the clubhouse.
Right.
It's like a 260-yard carry over a chasm just to
Yeah.
get to the first fairway.
Exactly.
So off we go. We played. It was an unbelievable day, and Hank has been a convert ever since. Let's put it that way. And one of my favorite parts of that was Phil had a golf cart that looked exactly like all the other golf carts, and we start driving on the fairways, and Phil's is going a lot faster than ours is going. And I'm like,
Of course.
Phil, do you have that thing souped up? What's the deal with that? And he says, no. He says, this was a birthday gift for me from Amy. It literally, his golf cart, Anthony, had DirecTV installed in the
Oh,
roof of the cart. We were watching playoff games on about a 12-inch screen that folded down. That day, the early playoff games were going on. We're
yeah.
watching NFL games.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He's got a cooler in the back. It's a totally souped up, custom, amazing
Amazing.
cart, but it looked exactly like everything else in the club, so you wouldn't even know it.
Right.
Except,
Right.
and Phil would drive that cart from his house. It was about a 12-minute ride on the streets in Rancho Santa Fe. And I've had a lot of funny stories with that. I played with him another time there when the cart ran out of juice. It ran out, and he said to me, he goes, "Do you think you just follow me home just in case because it's low on juice?"
Right. Right.
And I said, "Sure." So I got my like Ford Taurus rental car, and I'm following him behind on these beautiful back roads in Rancho Santa Fe. And sure enough, the thing conked out like a mile from his house. And we are like two village idiots trying to figure out. I don't want to like push it from behind because I don't want to break the thing.
Yeah, of course.
And so
you don't want
he's
to
like,
just leave it there.
so he pulls a towel out and like wraps it around the cart, and he's going to hold it out of his car while he's or he's going to hold while I tow him. That wasn't working. I'm telling you, it was like a Hardy Boys or
Lauren and
Abbott
Hardy.
Costello.
Yeah, exactly.
And so finally we decided, all right, I'm going to slowly push you, which I did. I nudged him all the way back to his house. I'd never been to his house before, the only time I've been there. And he showed me around when we got there. 3 greens in the backyard, all different grasses, according to which tournaments he's playing. Literally the Augusta grass, everything in there, bent grass, Bermuda, everything.
Yeah.
And he showed me around, and we actually did a couple putting contests around there, which I happened to win.
Attaboy.
On the Augusta green, I did. But so that was a spin-off of the Hank experience. But I was really lucky enough to do that with him a few times, and that was another funny incident.
That's great.
Hank was not a Phil guy until he was invited to Phil's golf course and play. So
and now he's a Phil guy.
Now he's a Phil guy.
I love it. I love it. Mark, thank you. I know you're busy, and I'm sure you're still acclimated coming back from the Open Championship, but appreciate you carving a piece of your day out for me and for the podcast, and look forward to seeing you at Woodway.
Good deal. Enjoyed it. Talk to you soon, Anthony.
Take care.